FPL Keeper Void is back for Game Week 37. Welcome to FPL Mate, my name is Dan. We are back for videos once again for Game Week 37. And we've got just 2 game weeks left to try and make a difference for our FPL teams. Let's talk about some transfers. And guys, if you haven't checked out the Stick to FPL episode for Game Week 37, make sure you do. It is up on all platforms now, so go check it out using the link in the description, or just search Stick to FPL on your favorite pod platform. And if you're new to Buy, Sell, Keep, Avoid, this is how it works. So this video is split into 2 parts, the first of which we will have a look at those players you may already have in your team, and whether they are keeps or whether they are sells. After that, we'll have a look at some buys and some avoids as well. Which players should you bring in and which players you shouldn't. Players will be tier listed with the best players at the top and the worst ones at the bottom. And we're going to start off as always with the forwards, which ones you should keep and which ones you should sell. And we've got a few familiar faces at the top of this list, with Wissa number 1, despite just that 1 pointer in Game Week 36. I imagine a few Wissa owners were disappointed in that result, but the good fixtures are not quite over yet, with Fulham at home the next fixture. And as we can clearly see, out of the forwards in FPL right now, Wissa is one of the in-form guys, putting up some really good numbers, taking plenty of shots, plenty of big chances in the past 6 game weeks, and actually a little bit of creativity there as well. Wood is also an interesting one, and even though his fixtures are maybe a little more difficult than Wissa, we do know that Nottingham Forest still have a lot to play for, with a Champions League position at stake right now. He should be nailed on for these final 2 game weeks of the season. He's a penalty taker as well, so there are a lot of positive signs around Wood, which is why he is worth keeping. We've also got Cunha in here as a keep as well. He's got great fixtures against a Crystal Palace team that play just 2 days after their FA Cup final. They will play against Wolves in the Premier League. So we could see a heavily rotated Crystal Palace team in this game. And this Crystal Palace team, by the way, is conceding a lot of goals recently. So looking for forwards from Wolves, Cunha could be the guy to take yourself to the promised lands of FPL. But one small concern, Cunha did have that early substitution in Game Week 36, which could suggest that his minutes could be slightly reduced, with Wolves not much to play for left in the Premier League other than simply league position. So just be aware of that one, but the fixtures look good. If he can get some starts in the next 2 game weeks, play some decent minutes, penalties, set pieces, and all of the magic he produces, could be a pretty decent pick. Strand Larsen is going to come just below Cunha, and even though he only got a substitute appearance last game week, I think he should be good for a start for these final 2 game weeks of the season. So there is some risk there, but certainly by game week 38, I imagine Strand Larsen will be back, being that main central striker for this Wolves side. He's been putting up even better data than the likes of Cunha in recent game weeks where he has been playing, with 3.57 XG during this period. Really, really nice and high. And once again, could be a nice way to target that Crystal Palace game if you do already have Strand Larsen maybe hanging around on your bench recently. Could be getting that start and could give you a good result. Evan Nilsson's interesting because Man City away is just a tough fixture right now. They really have sorted themselves out defensively and are probably one of the best defenses in the Premier League at this present moment. But that Leicester at home game in Game Week 38 means that Evan Nilsson is probably not going to be worth selling. You could play him this week, or you could just bench him for Game Week 38 in mind. Alexander Isak, don't think he is a must sell, should be good for minutes at least, but his form has dropped recently, and Arsenal away and Everton at home aren't exactly the easiest pair of fixtures. And Welbeck here, Liverpool at home, he could also find himself at some rotation risk by the time we get to Game Week 38, because Joao Pedro has returned following suspension, so just be aware of that if you are a Welbeck owner right now. Omar Marmoush could be a sell at this point. He is now going to be rotation risk with Erling Haaland back available for Manchester City. It could be that Marmoush plays one of the next 2 games. He could play both. He could start neither. That is the risk. And at this stage of the season, I just don't think it is worth taking a risk there. So if you do have Marmoush in your squad right now, he is definitely a player you could potentially think about selling, particularly as we are yet to see Marmoush, Haaland and De Bruyne all start at the same time. And it seems like De Bruyne is probably pretty nailed on for his final home game against Bournemouth. It's just about whether Marmoush will play instead of Haaland, and that indeed is the mystery. Mateta is also going to be a sell here, and I think generally with our Crystal Palace players, everyone is going to be rotation risk in Game Week 37. It is super unlikely that Crystal Palace now get a European place outside of through winning the FA Cup. So that is going to be very difficult for them. And given that fixture, as we mentioned, against Wolves is just 2 days after the FA Cup final, that is a really, really small gap between games, and is arguably a little bit unfair to expect the Crystal Palace boys to go full strength for this Game Week 37 fixture. And finally, Nicholas Jackson, if you do for some reason have him in your FPL team, well, he has caused you more pain, more problems, and he's actually going to be suspended for the rest of the season and indeed into next season. Hey, I guess the positive of that is that no one will be tempted to pick him up for Game Week 31 next season and get more pain from this absolute troll of an FPL asset. But despite good fixtures, Jackson has got to go because he can't even play. In midfield, Saka tops the keep section, and it's not because of this Newcastle game. Actually, Newcastle have been a pretty strong defence recently. That's not to say Arsenal can't get something out of this game, but really it's Game Week 38 where we could be looking at a Saka captaincy. Saka probably the standout captain for Game Week 38 right now. So if you do have him in your team already, then it's probably not worth selling him, considering you're very likely to want to bring him back in for Game Week 38. Now, of course, Saka, as a big player, will be able to compete in any game, including Newcastle. So even though the chances of that mega haul is less likely in a fixture like this, it's still very possible he can get himself on the scoreboard. Palmer is also going to be in the keep section. His form has improved slightly, but really it's the next 2 fixtures I do like for him quite a lot. Manchester United at home, and this is a Manchester United team that will be prioritising the Europa League final that takes place in the midweek of Game Week 37, means that Man United probably will be heavily rotated. And, you know, even if they weren't, Man United seem to have given up on the Premier League right now, which could provide a good opportunity for Chelsea, who still have so much to play for that Champions League football, which is still very much in their hands. Nottingham Forest is also a pretty good fixture right now. They're conceding a lot of chances, and you never know, Palmer could be the man to do the business in these games. And De Bruyne, we mentioned, should be good for a start. Final home game for Manchester City before he does leave the club. He has to get that big send-off, and maybe he could go out with a bang. Decent underlying numbers here, plenty of shots, and actually unlucky not to get anything out of Game Week 36. Taking a few shots, creating plenty of big chances for his teammates as well. Next week is a new week, and against Bournemouth, he could thrive. Mo Salah is going to be in the monitor section, and if you do want to take a risk right now and sell Salah, I wouldn't totally blame you. It is no secret that he is in poor form right now, but he does still have plenty of personal records to achieve. The rest of his teammates maybe slightly more on the beach, but more goals, trying to beat his goal scoring record, trying to push up that record for most goal contributions in the season, and he's still looking at that assist record for the Premier League as well. So in terms of those personal targets, Salah does still have them, but if he's in poor form, if his team is maybe not at their best right now because they're done for the season, they've won the Premier League, then you could understand why maybe if you needed to find some money from somewhere, maybe you could take a risk and remove Salah. Cliver is going to be in monitor as well. It's that Game Week 38 fixture that we do like from him, but away against Man City this week, and maybe some concerns about Clivert's minutes. We are seeing actually at the moment, Clivert's minutes per game seems to be dropping a little bit. So I wonder if he can become a rotation risk player in the near future. Not sure, but I guess we'll have to wait and find out. And finally, in the monitor section, we do have these Newcastle midfielders. They do seem to be nailed on right now for minutes, which is very good, but the next 2 fixtures not looking great at the moment. So at least they'll play. That's a good thing, I guess, but can we expect much more from that? Are we expecting them to get huge points like we've seen maybe a few weeks ago? Maybe not so much. And in the sell category, Crystal Palace midfielders such as Ismail Assar are going to present a lot of risk in Game Week 37 for that rotation. And then Game Week 38 is an away fixture against Liverpool anyway. Now, of course, Liverpool could be very much on the beach by then, but still, you have to have some concern about whether those Crystal Palace boys will be playing in Game Week 37 and what they can produce for the rest of the season, particularly when we look at some of those other options very shortly. Bruno Fernandes, I'm not expecting to start against Chelsea. He should be rested for that Europa League final after the Chelsea game. And Trossard has picked up an injury. We're not sure how bad it is, but it is a hamstring injury, which does suggest he could be out for the rest of the season. So a little bit of a concern there for Trossard, and therefore I would probably look to just sell him. Getting those minutes secured players might be the most important thing in FPL right now, with so many players at that risk of rotation as we enter the final 2 game weeks of the season. Let's talk about defenders next, and Saliba is going to be top of this list. Really no strong reason to sell him, particularly when you look at game week 38, where Arsenal defenders will provide the best opportunity for clean sheets. Newcastle at home is not a great fixture, so you could definitely afford to bench Saliba if you have some better options, but selling him with maybe the idea of bringing him back next week, don't think it's worth it. If you look at this in a 2 game week period, it's quite nice to own Saliba, I think, so wouldn't be looking to sell him. Nori still providing a little bit of attacking threat there, which is quite nice compared to some of the other defenders. 0.77 XG, 1.6 XA over the past few game weeks as well, past 6 game weeks. Crystal Palace could, like we mentioned, be actually a nice fixture this game week in game week 37. So therefore, Aït-Nouri, I would definitely be looking to keep and play for game week 37. And Jurrien Timber, despite not being on the field in game week 36, I think he should be good to come back for game week 37 and start, most likely at right back, but potentially at left back as well. We'll have to wait and see on that, but I think Timber is worth keeping. He is the main starting player for Arsenal when he is fit and available. He is part of that strongest Arsenal starting 11, in my opinion, so he should be good to go when he is available, and I think he will be. Kirkes, again, we're going back to that Bournemouth conversation. You probably don't want them for game week 37, but you're definitely going to want them for game week 38 at home against Leicester. So it's probably going to be a worthwhile just keeping him, maybe benching him for this week. Milenkovic, on the other hand, despite a good fixture against West Ham, Forest have been just so poor defensively and are finally actually conceding goals that you really doubt whether they can keep a clean sheet against anyone right now, even West Ham. It is away from home, Chelsea in 38. I would understand why some people might be tempted to sell Milenkovic right now, but he's certainly not a must sell. Fabian Schär is also in here. Nice fixture in game week 38 against Everton. Arsenal, maybe not so much. You could consider selling him. And Trent Alexander-Arnold, some concerns about rotation and minutes right now, and given the reception he got for Liverpool in game week 36, maybe you do wonder a little bit how welcome he is in the starting 11 and whether it's even worth him playing at this point. He'll be looking for a good send-off, but it doesn't seem to be happening for him right now. Maybe away against Brighton could be an opportunity to start, but I would have some concerns whether he will start against Crystal Palace in game week 38. I guess we'll have to wait and see. I'm sure a lot of people will have different opinions on that one, but he's certainly risky no matter how you look at it, particularly at that kind of price tag. Robinson and Fulham defenders, not exactly doing brilliantly at the moment, conceding far more goals than we would expect them to. Brentford away and Man City at home are a terrible pair of fixtures, so it's probably time to get rid, particularly as he is carrying some kind of underlying issue which has limited his minutes in recent game weeks. He's not injured per se, but maybe he's just getting that rest for the a few games recently. Can he come back into the starting 11? Maybe. Would we want him in your starting 11 in these fixtures? Maybe not. Pedro Porro, super rotation risk. Pretty poor fixtures. He's going to be a pretty straightforward sell. And Trippier, another player with an injury issue that could rule him out for the remainder of the season. So at 5.7 million, might be worth just removing if you have another defender that you'd like to buy. And at this halfway stage of the video, I do ask you to please leave a like if you have been finding this video useful, or maybe any video in the previous weeks. It is massively appreciated. It really does help the channel. And do think about subscribing if you like this kind of content and you want to see it again next season. Okay, forwards to buy, and there's only one man at the top of this list, and his name is Ollie Watkins, with Rashford probably still out for game week 37 and illegible to play in game week 38 against parent club Manchester United. You have to look at this pair of fixtures for Aston Villa. These are two teams who only care about the Europa League final right now. Tottenham Hotspur and Manchester United. So this could be huge for Aston Villa attackers, and Watkins has to be at the top of your priority list. Potential penalty taker, reasonably good underlying numbers, coming in with a bit of form with a game week 36 goal. I quite like this one actually for the next 2 game weeks, particularly considering those fixtures. These could be cricket scores in these next 2 games with Aston Villa with so much to play for, including goal difference, which could be the difference between making the Champions League and not. Wissa is still going to be a buy for me because of that good form, and I think Wood is a pretty sensible, safe kind of forward to pick up right now as well if you want to. But if you do want to take a risk, there are plenty of other forwards that I think could definitely outscore Wood if you're willing to take just that little bit more risk in your FPL team. And these next 3 players in the monitor section really are those guys. So if you do want to take a bit more of a risk, we're looking at the likes of Cunha, Vardy and Beto, because they certainly do have better fixtures, higher ceilings, and all of these guys are potential penalty takers as well, depending on who else is on the pitch at the same time. Certainly, Cunha does look really interesting if he can get a start against a rotated Crystal Palace team. And Vardy and Beto both playing against those newly promoted teams, and Vardy final 2 games for Leicester. This is really interesting. Could he go off? Could he do something magical as he looks to finish his Leicester career? 2 really nice fixtures, but maybe 2 FPL assets that haven't always been as reliable as maybe some of the other slightly more expensive forwards over the course of the season. Erling Haaland has also got to be a monitor here. He is going to carry some risk right now, given that he has just returned from injury, played a lot of minutes against Southampton. We've got the FA Cup final to play as well. It is a little risky here. Is Haaland going to start against Bournemouth or not? I don't know for sure. But if you do want to take a risk on a player who is clearly a guy with a very high upside, we've seen it many times before, how many FPL points he can score in an individual game, how many goals he can score, then it could be a risk you find it worth taking. But do be very cautious about this one. I'm going to put Delap in the avoid section. He has been getting some early substitutions lately, and even though I do kind of like these 2 fixtures for him, his stats are not great. I'm worried about those minutes a little bit, maybe a little riskier than the likes of Vardy and Beto, who could be slightly better options for these final game weeks of the season. So yeah, I'm going to put Delap in this section. It's just the form. It's not been there in the same way as some of the other players that we've spoken about today. Cody Gakpo is probably going to be some degree of rotation risk with Liverpool, nothing to play for. And Mateta, as we mentioned, Crystal Palace are just going to be a nightmare for rotation, so would be looking to avoid him very comfortably. Midfielders to buy, and there's plenty of good midfielders with great fixtures to end off the season. Jared Bowen has been in red hot form recently, and he plays an out of form Forest team, followed by an away fixture against Ipswich, which isn't so bad either, really. So you've still got 2 really nice fixtures for Bowen. You haven't missed the boat yet. There is still time to jump on Bowen and try and capitalize on these final 2 game weeks of the season with the West Ham man. And Burmo, still not too late to buy him as well. Still like the look of him, putting up pretty good underlying data here. Plenty of shots, plenty of creativity there, which gives us that assist potential. Fulham at home, I think in general, is a good fixture, and Fulham have looked pretty shoddy recently in general. So I do like the look of these Brentford guys. And of course, like Watkins, we will be having a look at Morgan Rogers as a buy this week as well. If you're looking for a cheaper midfielder, Rogers could be the solution there against these 2 teams who are going to be fully focused on the midweek 37 Europa League final. Tottenham Hotspur and Manchester United. So Morgan Rogers could be the play if you're looking to go a bit cheaper. Cheaper still is Sharda, who has been in good form. I think he might have some rotation risk later in the season with Igor Thiago, but the form speaks for itself. The fixtures are still good enough. I wonder if Rogers is slightly preferable if you can afford a 5.7 million kind of guy, but Sharda still has to be in the conversation here, considering all of the goals he's scored in the last couple of game weeks. Palmer is also going to be here as a potential buy if you do want to spend a bit of money on a player who maybe hasn't been in the best of form over the past month, but is starting to pick up in the right direction and has that nice run of fixtures or pair of fixtures. Then Palmer is definitely still on the menu. De Bruyne, it's probably not as good of a time to buy him now as maybe it was last game week, but he still definitely needs to be on the menu. And Saka is a player you could potentially wait 1 more week before picking up for that Game Week 38 fixture against Southampton. Gibbs White had a great game in Game Week 36 with a goal and an assist to his name, but the underlying data isn't looking too hot for him recently, really, with just around 1 XG and 0.26 XA in 6 starts in 6. Are the fixtures good enough to go in on a player like that? I'm not sure they are after just one game of a good response there, good return. Luis Diaz, another player who is going to have rotation risk for Liverpool in that attack. Brighton away, maybe not the best time to jump in on him. And despite Eberechi Eze's absolute heroics recently, he has got to be rotation risk going into Game Week 37, just like all of the other Crystal Palace boys. Crystal Palace have everything to play for, just not in the Premier League. So this could be the time to rest the Crystal Palace man, and therefore it's very difficult to recommend buying him at this point. Looking through those defenders, it's still the Man City boys at the top of the list for me. No change from the last couple of weeks here, and they do continue to pick up a lot of FPL points. Clean sheet points, bonus points seem to be a cheat code for these guys as well because of the midfielders. FPL midfielders playing in the fullback position. It means that they can hoover up all the clean sheet bonus points, I suppose. Bournemouth and Fulham, not such a bad pair of fixtures. Fulham struggling to score a little bit here. Bournemouth not exactly lighting the world alight in the attacking areas either. So I like the pair of these guys. You're probably going to have one of them already. I've got no problem with adding a second one if you do just want to have that safe and secure minutes, safe and secure regular returns, reliable kind of guys. If you want to go a little riskier, Cucurella could be the answer there. So obviously he has better attacking potential than the Man City defenders right now, taking plenty of shots recently, really throughout the season, scoring a couple of goals, been maybe a little unfortunate not to get a goal over the last few game weeks as well, has a little bit of creativity, and it plays this rotated Manchester United team at home next, followed by Forest away. Everything to play for still for Chelsea with Champions League on the menu. Actually, I quite like Cucurella as a pick if you're willing to go just that little bit riskier than your Man City boys. Mykolenko with a goal in Game Week 36 is certainly going to tempt a few people, and Southampton at home is a pretty nice fixture as well. My one concern with Mykolenko, despite his nice cheap price tag, is do we like the pair of fixtures for him? Obviously, Game Week 37 looks good, but Game Week 38 away against Newcastle, maybe not so much. Could be a little trickier for Everton. So if you're looking for a player just to cover you for this game week, he could be the solution, but over a 2-game week period, I think we can do a little bit better. All right, Nori is another exciting player with that attacking potential. Crystal Palace could be good this week, but Brentford at home in Game Week 38, I wonder a little bit about that one. Wan-Bissaka has a nice pair of fixtures, Nottingham Forest and Ipswich away in the final 2 game weeks of the season, and actually has got a couple of assists recently. Do you trust West Ham defensively though? Maybe more than some teams, but there's probably a few other teams you trust just that little bit more than West Ham right now if we're looking for clean sheet points. And Collins is also going to go in monitor. I don't want to disrespect Collins as a pick too much, but it has to be said, it's not a very exciting one. Yes, he's managed to get some attacking returns this season, but it never looks like it's going to happen frequently. And despite Brentford doing pretty well defensively, Fulham and Wolves, it's not the perfect pair of fixtures with not that much attacking threat compared to some of the other players on this list. Is it worth going for him? I'm not sure. I guess if you want to go for something a little bit more sensible for that cheap price tag, he could be the solution. He's certainly playable in each of the next 2 game weeks. And Virgil, as well as pretty much all Liverpool defenders, probably not worth buying at this stage of the season at those kind of price tags. Not sure they're going to give you the returns you want with the whole team basically on the beach. I've seen kind of rumours that Liverpool are only even training once per week at the moment. So they are ready for their holidays. They are ready to party. I'm not sure I'd be looking to invest if I hadn't. At least if I didn't have these players in my squad already. Munoz, despite heroics in Game Week 36, again, with that rotation risk, would not be looking to buy, potentially would even be looking to sell. And Dan Burn, with attacking returns recently, Arsenal away is just not a great jumping on point for the Newcastle defender. And finally, goalkeepers. And yeah, have to be totally honest with you guys. If you have a goalkeeper who is guaranteed minutes, that's probably going to be good enough. Raya sells. Some people have been selling these guys. I don't think I would be looking to sell them, to be honest. The only real goalkeepers I'd be looking to sell would be maybe players like Onana, Vicario, Fabianski, those kind of guys who are not guaranteed minutes for the end of the season. That's really the only reason, the only way I can see it being beneficial to use any of your precious few transfers left this season on a goalkeeper position. Doesn't really seem worthwhile. By the way, Raya and Sells are also in the avoid section. They're kind of don't buy, don't sell kind of players. But if you are desperately looking for a new goalkeeper in Game Week 37, Martinez and Flecken could be the answer there potentially, with a reasonably good pair of fixtures for each of those teams. But that is all of the players I want to talk about in today's video. If I did miss anyone out, let me know in the comments section. I'll do my best to reply to as many comments as possible of what kind of players we may have missed out you guys want to talk about. If you enjoyed this one, please do drop a like. Almost done with this season now, guys, so do subscribe if you want to follow along for the final couple of game weeks. But we will be back tomorrow for the experts video, and they're doing really well right now, so there's going to be some great tips there, so stay tuned for that. I'll see you later, mates. Bye bye.